There was a moment this morning. Maybe you don't remember it because it passed so quickly, but it was there. That moment between waking up and reaching for your phone, 2 seconds, maybe 3, and in those seconds you were fine, not ecstatic, not performing happiness, just fine. Your body was warm under the covers, your mind was quiet. You existed without judgment, without measurement, without ranking yourself against anyone. You were just you, and you were enough. Then you picked up the phone, and within 90 seconds you weren't enough anymore. You saw her body, his career, their vacation, that kitchen renovation, that perfect family photo with the golden hour lighting and the matching outfits and the kids who somehow weren't screaming. And something shifted inside you, something quiet and fast like a door closing. The peace you woke up with was gone, replaced by this low hum of inadequacy that would follow you through the rest of your day. You didn't choose it. You didn't ask for it. You just opened an app. This is your life now. This is most people's life now. Waking up enough and going to bed not enough. And the only thing that changed between those 2 points was a screen. Let's talk about what's actually happening here, because this isn't about willpower. This isn't about insecurity. This is about a psychological weapon that fits in your pocket and fires every time you unlock it. The app you opened this morning wasn't designed to connect you with friends. It was designed to capture your attention by making you feel just inadequate enough to keep scrolling. Not so bad that you leave, just bad enough that you stay. That's the sweet spot. That's where the money is. And you've been living in that sweet spot for years, without knowing it had a name. The surface problem is obvious. You spend too much time on your phone. Everyone knows that. What nobody's explaining is the deeper damage. Social media isn't just wasting your time. It's rewriting your self-worth in real time. Every scroll recalibrates what enough means. Every post raises the bar. Every highlight reel teaches your brain that your actual life, the real, messy, unfiltered one, is falling short. And the cruelest part, you were fine before you looked. You were enough before the comparison started. The app didn't reveal your inadequacy. It manufactured it. The data confirms what you already feel. Research consistently links heavy social media use with increased rates of anxiety, depression, poor body image, and loneliness. A landmark study from the University of Pennsylvania demonstrated that reducing social media use to 30 minutes daily produced significant improvements in well-being and a marked decrease in depression. The American Psychological Association reports that the more time adults spend on social platforms, the more likely they are to feel isolated. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Affective Disorders, covering over 70 studies, confirmed a significant association between social media use and depressive symptoms, with the effect particularly pronounced in women. Internal research from one of the largest platforms showed that the app made body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. These aren't opinions from wellness influencers. These are peer-reviewed measurements of a problem that's been growing inside your pocket for over a decade. And you're not on the outside of this data. You're inside it, every morning. You've been carrying this for years. Think about the cumulative cost, not in abstract terms, in real, specific, personal terms. Thousands of mornings where you woke up okay and scrolled yourself into not okay before breakfast. Thousands of moments where your actual life, your real home, your real body, your real relationship, your real career, felt insufficient because you measured it against a fiction that doesn't exist outside of a screen. Thousands of quiet decisions, what to wear, what to post, what to want, what to feel bad about, that weren't really yours. They were responses to inputs from an algorithm. You just thought they were yours because the process was invisible. And every day it continues, the erosion goes deeper. Not the kind of erosion you notice and fix. The kind that's so gradual you only realize the damage when you look up one day and can't remember the last time you felt genuinely satisfied with your own life. You're about to hear something different from what the wellness industry has been selling you. This isn't a digital detox lecture. This isn't about screen time limits or app timers. This is about understanding the exact mechanism that steals your enoughness and building an internal system that the app can't touch. 5 chapters. The neuroscience of why you felt enough before the phone and didn't after. The machine that profits from your self-doubt. The identity it's been building for you without your consent. The shift that takes the power back, and the daily practice that makes the shift permanent. By the end of this, you won't delete every app on your phone. That's not the point. But you'll understand exactly why you feel what you feel, and you'll have specific tools to stop the erosion. You'll know how to wake up enough and stay enough, whether or not you open the app. Here's what I need from you right now. Honesty. Not with me, with yourself. Are you willing to look at what that phone has actually cost you? Not the time. Everyone talks about time. I'm talking about something more valuable than time. I'm talking about identity. The quiet confidence you used to have before you started measuring yourself against strangers every morning. The satisfaction you used to feel in your own life before you saw 1,000 versions of a better one every single day. The ease you used to feel in your own skin before a feed full of filtered faces taught your brain that your face wasn't enough. Are you willing to see that? Are you willing to trace the feeling back to the source and sit with what you find? Because what comes next will be uncomfortable. It will name things you've been avoiding. It will make visible a process you've been living inside without recognizing. But uncomfortable is where change lives. Comfortable is where erosion lives. And you've been comfortable in your shrinking for long enough. 1 hour. That's all this takes. Less time than you'll spend scrolling today, statistically. Less time than you'll spend consuming content that makes you feel less than. But this hour is different. This hour might be the one that changes how every future scroll lands, how every future morning starts, how every future moment in your own life feels. Let's start before you pick up the phone again and lose another morning to a feeling you never asked for and don't deserve. Chapter 1. The Neuroscience of Not Enough. You felt enough this morning. Then you didn't. Something happened in between, and it happened inside your brain, faster than you could think about it. So let's slow it down. Let's look at exactly what fired, what shifted, and why a glowing rectangle can dismantle your self-worth in under 2 minutes. The first thing that happens when you open a social media app is a dopamine release, but not the kind most people think. Dopamine isn't pleasure, it's anticipation, it's the chemical of maybe. Maybe the next post will be funny, maybe someone liked your photo, maybe there's something new and interesting waiting. That maybe is what gets your thumb moving. Scroll, scroll, scroll. You're not seeking satisfaction. You're seeking the possibility of satisfaction. And because the feed is infinite and unpredictable, the seeking never ends. This is the same variable reward mechanism that powers slot machines. The unpredictability is the hook. Your brain evolved to pay intense attention to unpredictable stimuli because in the wild, unpredictable meant potentially dangerous or potentially valuable. Social media hijacks this ancient wiring and uses it to hold your eyeballs hostage. But the dopamine loop is just the entry ticket. The real damage starts with what your brain does while you're scrolling without your conscious awareness. It compares, relentlessly, automatically, and without permission. This is social comparison theory, identified by Leon Festinger in the 1950s. Humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate themselves by comparing to others. This drive exists because, in evolutionary terms, knowing where you stood in the group was a matter of survival. Higher status meant better access to resources, mates, and protection. Lower status meant vulnerability. Your brain tracks your social position the way it tracks your body temperature, constantly, involuntarily, without your input or consent. You don't choose to compare any more than you choose to breathe. Every face your brain encounters gets compared to your face. Every body to your body. Every achievement to your achievements. Every home, relationship, vacation, and meal to yours. This processing runs silently in the background of every scroll, every swipe, every second you spend on the app. This is crucial. In pre-smartphone life, your comparison pool was maybe 100 people. Neighbors, coworkers, friends, people whose real lives you actually witnessed, their bad days, their failures, their ordinary mornings in sweatpants eating cereal over the sink. The comparison was grounded in reality because you had full information about these people. You saw the whole picture, good and bad. Your brain could process that comparison set realistically because the data was honest. But now you're being exposed to thousands of people daily, and not random people. The most photogenic, most successful, most curated humans on the planet, algorithmically selected because their content generates engagement. You're comparing your unfiltered reality to the top fraction of a % of human experience, presented as if it's normal. Your brain doesn't adjust for this. It can't. It takes the data at face value and runs the comparison. And the math always comes back the same way. You lose. Here's what actually happens neurologically when you lose these comparisons. Your ventral striatum, the brain region that processes social status and reward, shows decreased activity. You literally feel less rewarded by your own life. Simultaneously, your anterior cingulate cortex, the region that processes social pain, activates. The same region that lights up when you stub your toe or get excluded from a group. Your brain is registering pain. Real, measurable, neurological pain. That sting you feel when you see someone's perfect life isn't drama. It's your pain circuits firing, because your brain just computed that you're lower status than a stranger you'll never meet. Most people miss this. The damage doesn't stop when you close the app. Research published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology shows that habitual social comparison triggers rumination, repetitive, involuntary thinking about the comparison long after the exposure ends. You see someone's post at 8 a.m. By 2 p.m., you're still thinking about it, not consciously, but it's running in the background, coloring your mood, your confidence, your decisions. One image. Hours of impact. Multiply that by the dozens of comparisons your brain runs during a single scroll session. Multiply that by every day for years. The cumulative neurological toll is staggering. There's another layer that makes this worse. People share positive content on social media at roughly a 4-to-1 ratio compared to negative content. Nobody posts the credit card debt. Nobody posts the fight with their partner. Nobody posts the anxiety attack at 3 a.m. They post the highlight, the peak, the curated best of. Your brain is processing a systematically distorted data set, all peaks, no valleys, and drawing conclusions about where you stand. The conclusion is always the same. Everyone else is winning and you're falling behind. The conclusion is wrong, but the data is so consistently skewed that the wrong conclusion is the only one the math can produce. Now here's the piece that connects everything. Psychologist E. Torrey Higgins identified what he called self-discrepancy theory. You carry 3 mental models of yourself. Your actual self, who you really are right now. Your ideal self, who you aspire to be. Your ought self, who you believe society expects you to be. When the gaps between these selves are manageable, you feel motivated. When they're enormous, you feel depressed and anxious. Social media is inflating your ideal self and your ought self every single day. Every perfect body raises the bar for your ideal. Every career milestone raises the bar for your ought. And the gap between your actual self and these constantly escalating standards grows wider with every scroll. That gap is the not enough feeling. It's not a character flaw. It's a mathematical gap created by corrupted data. The real reason you were enough before you opened the app is that your brain hadn't yet run today's round of impossible comparisons. In the silence before the scroll, your self-concept was based on your actual life, your actual values, your actual experience of being you. It was based on real data, how your bed felt, how the morning light came through the window, the sound of your house settling into the day. That was your baseline, and it was fine, more than fine. It was peaceful. The moment the app opened, your brain got flooded with data that redefined what enough means. Hundreds of images in minutes, each one processed, each one compared, each one shifting the bar higher. And by that new definition, a definition written by algorithms, curated by strangers performing their best selves and optimized for engagement rather than truth, you'll never qualify. Nobody does. Nobody can. That's not a flaw in you. That's the system working exactly as it was designed to work. The system needs you to feel not enough, because not enough keeps you scrolling, and scrolling is the product. Understanding the neuroscience is essential. It's the difference between I'm broken and I'm being manipulated. But the brain doesn't operate in isolation. It operates inside a machine that was built specifically to trigger everything we just discussed. A machine with a business model that depends on your insecurity. Let's look at that machine. Chapter 2. The machine that profits from your self-doubt. Your brain has vulnerabilities. Every human brain does. Social comparison, status sensitivity, pain from perceived inadequacy. These aren't bugs. They're features that kept your ancestors alive in small tribal groups. The problem is that a multi-billion-dollar industry has mapped those vulnerabilities with extraordinary precision and built a machine that exploits them for profit. That machine is in your hand right now. Social media companies are not in the connection business. They're in the attention business. Their revenue comes from advertising, and advertising revenue is directly proportional to how long you stay on the platform. Every second of your attention has a price tag. This single economic fact, attention equals money, explains every design decision you've ever wondered about. Why the feed is infinite. Why notifications are red. Why the algorithm shows you what it shows you. It's all engineered to maximize the one metric that generates revenue: your time on screen. This is crucial. Understanding the business model is the key to understanding why the problem never gets fixed. Think about it. Insecurity drives engagement. When you see someone living a better life, you don't close the app. You scroll deeper, you click on their profile, you examine their photos, you investigate their life. You spend more time. Your insecurity is their engagement metric. Your self-doubt is their revenue stream. Fixing the comparison problem would literally cost them money. They will never fix it voluntarily, because the thing that hurts you is the thing that pays them. The algorithm is the engine of this machine. It doesn't understand happiness or sadness or self-worth. It doesn't have a concept of what's good for you or bad for you. It understands one thing: what keeps you looking. It tracks every pause, every like, every share, every second you spend hovering over a post before you scroll past. And it learns fast. Within days of using a platform, it has a behavioral profile of your insecurities more detailed than anything a therapist could compile in months. It learns that you linger on fitness content specifically, on bodies that look nothing like yours, that you pause on home renovation reels specifically, homes that make your apartment look inadequate, that you stare at photos of women who have a certain look, a certain lifestyle, a certain aura of having it figured out. It doesn't know you're feeling pain while you look. It doesn't know the difference between fascination and anguish. It just knows you're looking. Your eyes are on the screen, the clock is running, and so it gives you more of exactly the content that triggers your deepest insecurities, not because it's malicious, because to the algorithm, your pain is indistinguishable from your interest. Both look like engagement. Both look like revenue. Imagine someone following you through a gallery, watching which paintings make you flinch, then rearranging the gallery so every hallway is lined with those exact paintings. That's your feed, personalized, optimized, weaponized against your specific vulnerabilities, and you walk through it every day calling it entertainment. Most people miss this about the content they consume. It's not a random sample of what exists online. It's a precision-targeted selection designed to maximize your emotional reactivity. Research on engagement patterns shows that content triggering aspirational envy, insecurity, and fear of missing out keeps users scrolling longer than content triggering satisfaction or joy. Contentment makes you put the phone down. Inadequacy makes you keep looking. So the algorithm learns to serve you inadequacy, wrapped in beautiful lighting and aspirational captions. Your feed isn't showing you reality. It's showing you a carefully constructed emotional trigger, optimized by artificial intelligence that has more data about human behavior than any researcher in history. Let's talk about the other side of the machine, the posting side, because the comparison machine doesn't just work on you when you consume. It works on you when you produce, too. When you upload content, you enter a feedback loop designed to make you psychologically dependent on external validation. You post a photo. Maybe it took you 12 tries to get the right angle. Maybe you spent 15 minutes choosing the filter. And then you put it out there. And then you wait. You check the app 10 minutes later. 20 minutes. An hour. Every like activates your brain's reward system. A small hit of social approval that feels like a sip of water when you're thirsty. Every absence of likes activates your rejection circuits. Not mild disappointment. Actual social rejection, processed by the same brain regions that handle being excluded from a group. Studies using brain imaging have shown that receiving low engagement on social media activates the same neural pathways as being left out of a social gathering or being rejected by peers. Your ancient brain, the one that evolved in tribes where exclusion meant death, reads low likes as a threat signal. Low status, low value, danger. Here's what actually happens when you combine the consumption side with the posting side. You scroll and feel inadequate. Then you post, trying to present your best self to counteract the feeling. Then you wait for validation, your mood swinging with every notification. Then you scroll again and see someone whose post performed better than yours. Then you feel more inadequate. Then you post again, trying harder. The cycle has no exit. It feeds itself. And with every rotation, you hand more of your self-worth to a system that was never designed to care about it. Let's be direct about the creators you're comparing yourself to. The influencer with the perfect morning routine. She filmed it 17 times. The couple with the dreamy relationship. They hired a photographer. The woman with the flawless skin. Professional lighting, professional editing, professional retouching. A significant majority of influencers openly admit their content doesn't represent their actual lives. You're comparing your real life to their job. Their full-time, well-paid job of manufacturing an illusion. And your brain processes that illusion as reality because it evolved in a world where images were real. It never developed a filter for curated fiction presented as candid truth. Stop telling yourself you should be able to handle this. You shouldn't. Nobody should. You're fighting a machine that was engineered by thousands of the world's smartest engineers and psychologists, backed by hundreds of billions of dollars, and optimized by AI that processes more behavioral data than any human could comprehend. This isn't a fair fight. It was never meant to be. The game was designed so the house always wins, unless you understand the game well enough to stop playing by their rules. The brain trap and the machine are two layers of the problem, but there's a third layer, and it's the one that costs the most. The machine isn't just making you feel bad in the moment. It's quietly, systematically rebuilding who you think you are. That's next. Chapter 3: The Identity Replacement. Here's what's actually at stake, and it's bigger than a bad mood after scrolling. Social media isn't just showing you content, it's reshaping your identity. Not dramatically, not in ways you'd notice day to day, but steadily, persistently, like water reshaping stone. And the person you're becoming isn't someone you chose to be. It's someone the algorithm chose for you. Your identity isn't fixed. Psychologists call the process of self-construction identity negotiation. Every day, your brain assembles your sense of self from the data available, the feedback you get, the comparisons you make, the experiences you have. This process is mostly unconscious. You don't decide who you are each morning. Your brain computes it from the inputs. Here's what actually happens. Social media has become the dominant input. The average adult spends over 2 hours daily on social platforms. That's over 700 hours a year of identity data streaming directly into your brain. Images, achievements, bodies, lifestyles, standards. Your brain takes all of it and uses it to answer the question it's always computing. Who am I and where do I stand? And because the data is overwhelmingly aspirational, the best of everyone else's life, the answer your brain computes is consistently, not enough, not there yet, not like them. This shows up as something called reference point adaptation. Your brain's standard for normal shifts based on what it's exposed to. See enough perfect kitchens on Pinterest in your actual kitchen. The one you cooked 1,000 meals in. The one where your kid took their first steps. The one that works perfectly fine, starts to feel shabby. See enough toned, filtered bodies and your healthy, functioning body feels inadequate. See enough career milestones from LinkedIn and your solid, stable job feels like a dead end. See enough couple goals and your real relationship, the one with morning breath and disagreements about dishes and comfortable silence on the couch, feels lacking. Nothing in your life changed. Not one single thing. The measuring stick did. And it changes so gradually, so invisibly, that you don't realize your standards have been hijacked until you're standing in your own living room wondering why it doesn't feel good enough, when 6 months ago you loved it. When 6 months ago, before the algorithm started feeding you a specific category of content, this room felt like home. Now it feels like a before photo. This is crucial. The identity replacement goes deeper than how you see yourself. It affects what you want. Your desires themselves are being rewritten by your feed. You think you want a minimalist apartment because it reflects your aesthetic values, but trace that want back to its origin. Was there a moment of personal discovery, or was there a reel you saw 4 months ago? You think you want to start a side business because you're entrepreneurial. But would you feel that specific urgency without the daily stream of 20-somethings celebrating revenue milestones? Social media doesn't just make you feel bad about what you have. It tells you what to want. And because the process is invisible, you genuinely believe these imported desires are your own. Most people miss this about how identity colonization works in daily life. It shows up as the impulse to photograph your food before eating it, the thought of whether a moment is postable before you've finished living it, the subtle disappointment when something beautiful happens but the lighting isn't right for a photo, the nagging feeling that if it wasn't documented, it didn't really count. These aren't personality traits. They're symptoms. Symptoms of an identity that's been shifted from experiencing to performing, from living for yourself to curating for an audience. Psychologist Carl Rogers described the gap between your real self and your ideal self as the core source of psychological distress. When the two are close, you feel authentic, peaceful, aligned. When they're far apart, you feel anxious, empty, like something's wrong even when nothing specific is wrong. He called the close state congruence and the distant state incongruence. Social media has stretched that gap to a size Rogers never could have imagined. Your ideal self is now a composite of the most photogenic, most successful, most curated humans the algorithm has ever served you. It's an impossible mosaic. This person's body plus that person's career plus another person's relationship plus someone else's home. No single human being matches that composite. It doesn't exist, but your brain treats it as the standard you should meet. And every day, the gap between who you are and who your brain thinks you should be gets wider. The feeling that accompanies that gap, that persistent, low-grade sense that something is off, that you're not quite where you should be, isn't anxiety about any specific thing. It's incongruence. It's the felt experience of living in a canyon between your real self and an impossible fiction you've been trained to aspire to. Here's what actually happens to your decision-making when your identity runs on external inputs. You lose your internal compass, the one that tells you what you actually want versus what you've been told to want. You can't tell the difference between an authentic desire and an implanted one. So you chase goals that look impressive but feel hollow when you reach them. You make choices optimized for how they'll appear rather than how they'll feel to live with. You say yes to things because they're postable and no to things because they're not. You design your life for an audience instead of for yourself. And then you reach the destination and feel nothing. Because it was never your destination. It was someone else's destination that got loaded into your navigation system through a feed you were scrolling while you were bored on a Tuesday night. This is perhaps the most devastating consequence of all, not the bad feelings. Bad feelings pass, but misdirected years don't come back. Time spent chasing someone else's definition of success, someone else's version of beauty, someone else's idea of a good life, that time is gone. And the worst part is you didn't even know it was happening. You thought you were following your own heart. You were following an algorithm. And the irony at the center of all of this, the people you're comparing yourself to are doing the same thing. The influencer with the perfect feed compares herself to other influencers. She scrolls through their accounts and feels the same shrinking you feel. The entrepreneur celebrating a milestone online is privately scrolling through the accounts of entrepreneurs who are 5 years ahead, feeling exactly what you feel looking at his post. The couple posting relationship goals spent 20 minutes staging the photo, argued about which filter to use, and went to bed in silence. Nobody is living the life they're posting. Everyone is performing for an audience that is itself performing. And everyone in the audience believes everyone else's performance is real. It's a collective hallucination with billions of participants and 0 winners. The only entities winning are the platforms themselves, counting engagement metrics while the humans generating those metrics quietly erode. Let me name what the app has taken from you since this morning, the peace you woke up with, the satisfaction you felt in your own life before you measured it, the confidence that comes from not ranking yourself against strangers, the ability to enjoy something without evaluating its postability, the quiet knowledge that you are enough, exactly as you are, without external confirmation. These were yours. They were free. And they were taken by a glowing rectangle before you even got out of bed. But here's the thing about what was taken. It can be taken back. And that's exactly what we're doing next. The mindset shift that puts the power back where it belongs, inside you, not inside the app. Chapter 4. The shift from absorbing worth to building it. You now understand three things. Your brain is wired to compare. The machine is designed to trigger that comparison. And the result is an identity you didn't build and don't want. Understanding is essential, but understanding alone changes nothing. Now we shift. The core of the problem is this. Your self-worth operates on an absorption model. You absorb your sense of self from what you see. Scroll through success and you feel like a failure. Scroll through beauty and you feel ugly. Scroll through adventure and your life feels boring. Your worth rises and falls based on external input, which means it's never stable. It's never yours. It belongs to whatever the algorithm serves you next. The shift is from absorption to construction, from consuming your worth to building it, from letting the feed define you to defining yourself deliberately on your own terms. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't affirmations. This is a structural change in how your brain generates self-worth. Let me make this concrete. Under the absorption model, you see a woman on Instagram with a beautifully decorated home. Your brain compares. Your home loses. You feel small. Under the construction model, you see the same post, but your brain asks a different question. Not how does my home compare, but what do I actually want my space to feel like? The first question places you in a hierarchy. You're above or below. The second question places you in your own story. There is no above or below. There's only you and what matters to you. This isn't a subtle difference. It's a completely different neural pathway. This is crucial. Neuroscience research shows that comparison-based thinking and self-referential thinking activate the medial prefrontal cortex in different modes. When you compare, the brain runs social evaluation software, ranking, judging, positioning. When you self-refer, the brain runs self-knowledge software, understanding, choosing, aligning. Same hardware, different software, different emotional output. The shift is literally about changing which program your brain runs when it encounters a trigger. The framework has 4 components. First, the comparison interrupt. This is the moment you catch the comparison happening and name it. You're scrolling. You see something that triggers that familiar shrinking. Instead of continuing, you pause and say internally, I'm comparing. That's it, just the label. Research on affect labeling shows that naming an emotion as it occurs can reduce its intensity by up to 40%. You're not suppressing the comparison. You're not arguing with it. You're just naming it. And that naming activates your prefrontal cortex, giving you a 2-second window of choice before the emotional spiral takes over. Second, the redirection question. After the interrupt, you ask, what do I actually want here? Not what she has, not what he achieved. What do you want based on your values in your actual life? This question forces your brain out of comparison mode and into creation mode. It redirects attention from the external hierarchy to your internal compass. Every time you ask it, you strengthen the neural pathway of self-reference over social comparison. Eventually, the question becomes automatic. Most people miss this about the shift. You're not trying to stop comparing. You can't. It's hardwired. You're trying to change what happens after the comparison fires. The comparison is the trigger. What you do next is the choice. And the more you practice the new response, the more automatic it becomes. You're not fighting your brain, you're retraining it. Third, evidence building. Your brain has spent years compiling evidence that you're not enough. Every unfavorable comparison got filed away. That file is thick and well-referenced, and your brain consults it constantly. Now you build a counterfile. Every day you note 3 things: something you created, something you consciously chose, and something you valued. Created means you produce something: a meal, a conversation, a solved problem, a clean room. Chose means you made a decision aligned with your values. Valued means you noticed something in your actual life that mattered to you. These aren't affirmations. They're evidence. And over time, they build what psychologists call self-efficacy, a belief in your own capacity that no one's post can take from you because it's based on what you did, not what they did. Fourth, the identity anchor, a conscious statement of who you are that contains zero comparison, not "I'm as good as her," not "I'm better than them," not "I'm enough" as a vague mantra you don't believe, something specific and grounded, something like, "I'm a person who builds a life that fits me," or "I'm someone who defines enough on my own terms," or "I'm a woman who chooses depth over display." The statement must be true right now, not aspirational, not someday, true today, and it must be something that no achievement by any stranger on any platform can invalidate. Because it's anchored to your values, not your ranking. Write it down. Say it during your morning anchor. Let it sit in the back of your mind as a reference point your brain can check when the comparisons start flying. Over time, this anchor becomes the foundation your self-worth is built on. Solid, internal, unshakable by algorithm. Here's what actually happens when you practice this framework consistently over weeks. The absorption model doesn't disappear overnight. It's been your default for years, maybe over a decade. You'll still have days where a single post wrecks your mood before you can blink. You'll still have moments where you forget everything you know and spiral into comparison like you used to. That's normal. That's not failure. That's the old neural pathway being stubborn, like a river trying to flow in its old channel. But with repetition, daily interrupts, daily questions, daily evidence, daily anchoring, the new pathway gets stronger. The comparison still fires. Your brain is human, but it lands differently. It goes from a verdict about your worth to a weather report about someone else's post. From a judgment you internalize to an observation you notice and release. The emotional charge fades, not because you stopped caring about your life, because your identity found a foundation that doesn't crack every time the algorithm decides to show you someone living differently than you. The real reason this works where screen time limits and digital detoxes don't. Those approaches address the exposure. This approach addresses the processing. You can limit your exposure all you want, but the moment you log back on, and you will, because that's the world we live in, the old processing patterns kick in and you're right back where you started. The mindset shift changes the processor itself. You can't control every image you'll ever encounter for the rest of your life. But you can permanently change what your brain does with those images when they arrive. That's where the real power is. Inside you, not inside an app setting or a screen time notification. Understanding the shift is one thing. Living it daily is another. The final chapter is about making this permanent. Chapter 5. Staying enough in a world that profits from your doubt. Frameworks are worthless without daily practice. If you close this audiobook and open Instagram the same way you did yesterday, nothing changes. So this chapter is about integration, not a 30-day challenge, not a temporary experiment, a permanent change in how you operate every single day in a world that's designed to make you feel small. Practice 1. The morning anchor. Before any screen, any app, any scroll, you spend 2 minutes answering 3 questions. What am I building right now? What matters to me today? What do I already have that I value? These questions prime your brain for self-referential processing before the comparison machine has a chance to boot up. The order matters enormously. If the first data your brain receives in the morning is other people's lives, your entire day gets filtered through comparison. If the first data is your own values, your own direction, your own gratitude, then every subsequent comparison hits a brain that's already anchored. It doesn't bounce you as far. It doesn't stick as long. 2 minutes. That's the cost of starting every day from a position of enough instead of a position of lacking. This is crucial. Most people reach for their phone within minutes of waking, some within seconds. That means the first information their brain processes each day, before they've even stood up, is a curated stream of other people's highlight reels. Their self-concept for the entire day gets built on a foundation of comparison. The morning anchor reverses this. It's the single most impactful change you can make because it sets the baseline before the erosion begins. Practice 2. Intentional entry. Every time you open a social media app, ask one question first. What am I looking for right now? If the answer is nothing or I'm bored, put the phone down. If the answer is specific, inspiration for a project, connection with a friend, information about an event, enter with that purpose and exit when it's fulfilled. This transforms you from a passive consumer being steered by the algorithm to an active navigator with a destination. The algorithm's power comes from your aimlessness. Take that away, and you take away most of its ability to drag you into comparison territory. Most people miss this about behavior change. The goal isn't to quit social media. That's unrealistic for most people, and it frames the technology as the enemy when the real enemy is unconscious consumption. The goal is to move from being used by the app to using the app, from passive to active, from reactive to intentional. That shift in posture changes everything, even if the screen time stays the same. Practice 3. The comparison map. For 1 week, 7 days, write down every comparison you catch yourself making while scrolling. What you saw, what you compared, what you felt. After 7 days, look at the patterns. You'll find that the same 2 or 3 insecurities get triggered repeatedly. The same types of content make you shrink. That's not a list of your flaws. That's a map of where your identity is most externally dependent. Those are the areas where the construction model matters most, where you most need to build internal evidence and internal anchors to replace the external measurements that have been running your self-worth. Practice 4. The creation hour. Once a day or minimum once a week, spend an uninterrupted hour making something instead of watching someone else make something. Write, cook, build, garden, draw, organize, play music, work on a project you've been putting off, rearrange a room, knit, bake, fix something that's been broken, learn a chord progression, sketch something from observation. It genuinely doesn't matter what you create. The specific output is irrelevant. What matters is the mode your brain is in. Consumption mode runs comparison software. Your brain is evaluating, ranking, measuring, judging. Creation mode runs agency software. Your brain is deciding, solving, expressing, building. You cannot effectively compare while you're genuinely absorbed in creating because you're inside the experience instead of outside, evaluating someone else's experience and measuring yourself against it. The self disappears during creation in the best possible way. There's no you versus them, because there's only the work in front of you. Over time, the creation hour does something profound to your identity. It rebuilds your sense of yourself as a person who produces, who acts on the world, who makes things exist that didn't exist before, not a person who watches other people produce and measures the gap. That shift in self-concept is quiet but transformative. You stop seeing yourself as an audience member and start seeing yourself as a participant. And participants don't shrink, they build. Here's what actually happens over time when you practice consistently. Your locus of evaluation shifts from external to internal. That's the psychology term for where your self-worth lies. External locus means your worth depends on outside feedback, likes, comparisons, approval. Internal locus means your worth comes from your own standards, what you built, what you chose, how aligned your life is with your values. This shift doesn't happen in a day, but it happens. And when it does, you can look at someone's beautiful life on a screen and think, that's nice, without the automatic subtraction from your own worth. The comparison still registers, it always will. But it stops being a judgment, it becomes noise, background, something you notice and release like a cloud passing. Practice 5, honest curation. Go through every account you follow. For each one, ask, do I feel bigger or smaller after seeing this person's content? Not is it interesting? Not do I admire them? Do you feel bigger or smaller? If consistently smaller, unfollow. You're not being petty. You're taking responsibility for the data your brain uses to build your identity. You wouldn't eat food that reliably makes you sick and call it a balanced diet. Don't consume content that reliably makes you feel inadequate and call it staying connected. Practice 6, real-world exposure. Spend deliberate time in unfiltered reality. A coffee shop, a park, a grocery store. Look at actual humans living actual lives. What you'll see is the truth social media erases. Most people are fine, not extraordinary, not performing, not optimized for engagement, just fine, wearing comfortable clothes, having quiet conversations, living in ordinary homes, and most of them look content. Your brain needs this data desperately. It's been running on a distorted sample for years. Real-world exposure recalibrates the reference points that social media has corrupted. Even 30 minutes of unfiltered reality can loosen the grip of the fiction. Let me set expectations for the timeline. This is not an overnight transformation. The absorption model has been running for years. The neural pathways of comparison are deep and well-traveled. You're not going to override them in a weekend. Week 1, you'll mostly catch comparisons after they've already hit and the mood has already shifted. That's fine. That's awareness being born. You're noticing a pattern that was invisible before. That alone is significant. Weeks 2 and 3, you'll start catching comparisons in real time, feeling the trigger as it fires and having a split second to redirect before the spiral takes hold. You'll still get pulled in sometimes. That's normal. That's the old pathway putting up a fight. By week 4 and beyond, you'll feel the trigger and your brain will already be asking, what do I actually want? Instead of how do I measure up? The question will come automatically, without effort, like a reflex you've trained into existence. That's the rewiring. That's the shift becoming your new default. That's your brain running new software as its standard operating system. There will be setbacks. There will be days where you scroll for 20 minutes and come out feeling terrible despite everything you know. Don't interpret that as failure. Interpret it as data. What triggered the comparison? What was the content? What insecurity did it hit? Add it to your map. Adjust your curation. Strengthen your anchor. Every setback is a refinement of the system, not evidence that the system doesn't work. This work won't make you immune to comparison. Nothing will. As long as you have a human brain, you will compare, but it will fundamentally change the power dynamic. Right now, the app controls your self-worth. After this work, you control it. Comparison becomes information you can take or leave, not a sentence you serve, not a verdict you accept, not a feeling that ruins your morning, just data, just noise, and you get to decide what to do with it. You now have everything you need to stay enough, every morning, every scroll, every day. Let's be honest about what happens next. You've spent this time listening, learning, understanding, and right now your brain is already filing this under interesting things I'll act on later. You know the pattern. You know it because you've lived it with every book, podcast, and moment of clarity that faded before it became action. Consume, agree, forget, repeat. While you decide whether tomorrow is really the day you'll try the morning anchor, the machine keeps running. Your phone is within arm's reach right now. The algorithm has your next comparison loaded and waiting. And every hour you delay, your brain logs another batch of evidence that you're not enough. The file gets thicker. The gap gets wider. The erosion continues. You're not staying the same by waiting. You're falling further from the person who woke up enough this morning before she opened the app. You're telling yourself you need to think about this more. Maybe find a good journaling app first. Maybe read another book about it. Maybe wait until Monday because starting on a Monday feels cleaner. That's not strategy. That's fear wearing a planning costume. That's the part of you that's comfortable being uncomfortable because at least the discomfort is familiar. The first step is waking up tomorrow and spending 2 minutes, 120 seconds, answering 3 questions before you touch a single app. That's it. That's the entire entry point, the entire cost of admission. And you've needed to take it for longer than you want to admit. Right now, decide. Are you the person who understands exactly how the app steals her enoughness and does nothing about it? Who nods along and then opens Instagram 20 minutes from now and feels the same shrinking she's always felt? Or are you the person who understands it and acts? Who wakes up tomorrow and chooses herself before she chooses the feed? Not, will I try the framework? Will you be the person who no longer outsources her self-worth to a machine that was specifically built to exploit it? Trying is what you've been doing. Trying to feel good about yourself while consuming a feed designed to make you feel less. Trying to be confident while measuring yourself against impossible fictions. Trying has had its chance. Now it's time to be. Be the person who anchors before she scrolls. Be the person who asks why before she opens the app. Be the person who builds her worth instead of absorbing it from strangers. Nobody is coming to fix your feed. No algorithm update will ever prioritize your peace of mind over their profit margin. No screen time limit will rebuild the identity that's been quietly dissolving for years. You are the only person who can take it back. And every morning you don't is a morning you choose the shrinking. Again. You were enough when you woke up today. You'll be enough when you wake up tomorrow. The only question is whether you'll let a glowing rectangle convince you otherwise before your feet even hit the floor. Tomorrow morning, 2 minutes, 3 questions before the app. That's where enough lives. Go get it.